Waiting by Aviva Stanislawski. Waiting is something we all must learn, even when the need for closure seems to burn, as we wish and hope for a favorable conclusion, and for all our problems to have this solution. We need to remember that patience is a virtue, and you must sit tight, even if it may hurt you. The Bible is full of stories, small and great, of our ancestors and leaders who had to wait. Sarah, Rebecca, and Rachel all waited and prayed for the fruit of their womb, which was much delayed. At 90, Sarah finally had her son, and Abram had 10 trials that he went through one by one. Jacob waited 7 years before he could marry, and then 7 more years he had to tarry. Joseph waited for years in prison. Before to great station he eventually was risen. Then the Jewish people in Egypt enslaved waited for 200 years to be redeemed and saved. Then they wandered 40 years in the desert sand before they could enter the promised land. And for Moses this waiting was more tragic still. His most fervent wish he could not fulfill. Queen Esther's patience in her 3-day fast before she could enter the king's chamber at last. And then with patience she planned each thing before finally revealing her request to the king. History is full of wishes that wait. Look how Israel became a state. And the Jewish people has its age-old dream, waiting for the Messiah who will ultimately redeem. Now we still await the release of prisoners of war, our captive hostages, and so many more. The suspense and stress, how do those families cope, wavering constantly between despair and hope? So many tensions, so many fears accompany people throughout the years. People with illnesses await an answer, fearing results that may be, God forbid, cancer. And so many lonely people wait for the right match to be their loving soulmate. And a simple act of challah preparation contains a message for consideration. We learn as we wait for the dough to rise that it takes time for things to materialize. Each time we await an important decision, we must remember the world is planned with precision. There are many mysteries unknown to man, but they are all part of the divine master plan. We must give our worries to Hashem's loving care, knowing His guidance will always be there. It's a lesson in faith, a belief we must acquire, a sense of trust and confidence to which we must aspire, an exercise to work on to develop this trait, to have patience and forbearance as we learn to wait. And though the desired outcome is most unsure, this process certainly helps us mature. It's a waiting game and a nerve-wracking test, but we must believe that it's all for the best.